Welcome to another episode of Vina Talks ND Life, where, as we know, ND stands for Neurodiversity. I am particularly excited today because I'm hosting Jemma, and soon enough you will all see exactly why this excitement is indeed expressed. And secondly, because today is one of the special episodes of My Place in This World, which is the campaign of GAIN in the celebration week for neurodiversity. We would like everybody's stories to really sort of explain how and in what kind of particular ways we all feel we've claimed and we're celebrating nowadays our place in this world being obviously our beautiful planet, but it's equally the family, it's the society, it's the workplace. And indeed the workplace, as you know, again, we're really campaigning for neuro-inclusive workplaces. So enough said. I would love you to give us feedback and to indeed enjoy the episodes. And so that we can get cracking, Jemma, would you like please to introduce yourself to us?
Hello, I'm Jemma Rowberry, 43-year-old late in life diagnosed ADHD and parent of a neurodiverse son as well, working within financial services and retirement planning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jemma. So I can actually already see we have a binary, so to speak, position in terms of the neurodiversity exposure and indeed neurodivergence, because we're speaking of a formal diagnosis for both yourself as well as your boy. Starting with yourself, perhaps, and by no means, there's no, as we all know, here with Vina Talks ND Life, we don't have any set agendas and we don't have a pre-provided sort of set of questions. So I want our audience to feel this organic sort of delivery in our own communication, but also indeed I would like us to sort of, openly speak about the various thematics that engage with us. Perhaps starting with you, I mean, what's your place in this world? Like, have you seen, has it been a journey in how you claim your own sort of place in it? Would you like to tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I think my journey with neurodiversity only really began formally a couple of years ago. I think I grew up in a world, as did most people my age, where neurodiversity wasn't very well known. And at school, you'd just be known as chatty, distracted, away with the fairies. And if she concentrated or applied herself a bit more, she could do great things. I definitely fell into that camp. And sort of growing up, I never really knew what my place in this world would be. And I kind of flitted from one thing to another and would immerse myself in each of those things and want to be the best that I could possibly be at it, and kind of almost become obsessed with that. And if you'd have asked Jemma when she was 16, what do you want to do when you grow up? It wouldn't have been working in an office 9 to 5, sitting at a computer. It would have been the complete polar opposite of that. I think I actually did say to my careers advisor at school, I never want to sit in front of a computer in an office and work in front of a computer all day, yet here I am. So yeah, I think kind of growing up and flitting between lots of different things, that be that hobbies or jobs, kind of, it was great for me from an experience perspective, but I always felt like I was chasing the next high, and it was almost I'd achieved something and then it was what was next. And I kind of never really felt satisfied in what I was doing in my career or what career path I was going to choose. And the career path that I've fallen into now happened completely by accident. And even to the point at the time when I moved into the QA space, I was working for a company that recruited these people, and I kind of moved into a secondment. I think it was around the time when obviously there was a lot of financial struggles, and recruiters weren't making that much money because people weren't hiring. And they wanted me to come along and kind of work for their consultancy arm and be a subject matter expert for a piece of recruitment software for the NHS. And I was like, heck, why not? Like, I'm a bit bored at the moment. Nothing's really going on. And I kind of did it for sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And they're like, heck, you're actually quite good at this. Your brain thinks in the right way. You're so analytical. How would you feel about joining us permanently? And I just laughed and I went, are you joking? I was like, I'm not an introverted IT person. I don't fall into that camp. Like, I don't think I could be one of you. And I think I kind of really pushed back on it. And then it was like, oh, sod it. Let's just give it a go. What's the worst that could happen? And I convinced my MD at the time to keep my nice little sales job open that I'd worked so hard for and kind of forced my way into. and then went and tried to be a tester, and I never came back. And I thought I would go back, and I thought, this is a 6-month trial, it will just give me something fun to do. And here I am now, I think 17 or 18 years later, still in the same IT sort of change and delivery space. And actually, it's the best mistake probably I've ever made. I didn't know at the time that what I now know as my neurodiversity is actually what makes me good at what I do. And I think having an over analytical brain when you work in the QA space makes it quite special. Being sort of now at the senior management side of things, I see a lot of testers who come and go who are really linear and can kind of take a requirement, look at it and go, that's what needs testing, and it's that flat structure. My brain doesn't work like that. It's like, okay, I see your requirement and I see your acceptance criteria, and I'm going to test the whole way around that. And I want to know how that fits into every other system and every other picture. And I always say I'm a big picture kind of girl. And that stands still to this day. And I think that is what I feel makes it a superpower for me, not something that should hold me back in life or define me, but actually it gives me that lens to look at things in a more complex way. So yeah, kind of falling into this career was not in my life plan, but it's still something that I really enjoy now. And I think, as I said, it's the best mistake I ever made. And thanks to, I think, my neurodiversity is found strength in kind of a role that allows you to use that as something positive and not negative. I think there's a lot of negativity nowadays and a lot of I think of the right word, biased, about people coming out saying, oh, I've got ADHD, and everyone goes, oh, hasn't everybody got ADHD nowadays? Actually, no, they don't. It's different to just being a bit forgetful, isn't it? It's more than just your brain's a bit chaotic. And the powers that come with neurodiversity make an analyst, I think.
So beautifully said. Honestly, where can I start? And loads of what you mentioned, apart from the specificities of our careers. Obviously, I haven't been in IT change delivery, but everything you said extremely resonates. I also grew up never being satisfied. The parents and teachers would always say to me, what would you like to do when you grow up? And my usual go-to answer, given that I didn't have a set sort of affinity towards a profession or science, anything, despite being a top performer at school for what's worth, was to live life. So for me, what was giving me that sort of high was life with experiences, the mistakes, and those mistakes are the learning points. Then things align, and as you say, you just end up doing certain things, and then you start discovering yourself. I mean, do you really think it's the profession itself, in conjunction with your neurodivergent sort of traits and tendencies and articulations, or is it also an element of you as Jemma, really growing your own inner support mechanism and resilient rather, and as well as reliance indeed of your own strengths, with a degree of confidence to carry yourself proudly and say, you know what, that's unapologetically me. That is me. That's the way I want to sort of approach my profession. And this is how I'm going to do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'll move on to another profession.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, like I said, trying different careers when I was growing up. I think 16-year-old Jemma wanted to be a police officer. And that's what I did sort of post-16 education. I went off and did like a 2-year course in public services, and I got to go out and be a copper in a car and chasing with blue lights, and it was all really fun. And then year 2 hit, and they were like, oh, now you've actually got to deal with some serious stuff. I kind of went to some things that were really quite eye-opening. And because with neurodiversity, you feel so much deeper than other people, right? It's not saying that neurotypical people don't feel deeply, but I think you are so immersed in situations that actually I found that for me, I couldn't switch my brain off when I went home from those things, and they stayed with me, and they kind of almost haunted me to the point that I knew at that moment in time that I couldn't disassociate my feelings with what I was seeing and being able to do that job. So I think kind of moving into something where it's a bit more structured, where I can make a difference, and like you say, be unapologetically me. I get imposter syndrome all of the time. I'm forever thinking, I kind of talked myself into this job. It happened by accident. Therefore, I don't have a degree in computer science. I'm not the techie codey person like most of the people that I sit around. But actually, what I'm really good at is understanding a problem and then looking at a problem and flipping it on its head and saying, okay, well, how can we look at this and how can we change how we approach it? And that's kind of, I think, how both my own skills and my neurodiversity kind of complement each other. And I don't always get it right. A lot of the time I get it wrong. But that's how you learn. And I kind of try and instill that in the people that I work with as well. Don't be afraid to ask a stupid question, because you know that there's probably about 6 other people on the call that have that same stupid question. Be the person to put your hand up. And normally it is me. I don't care. I'll ask the stupid questions and I don't mind if it's perceived as a stupid question. And I think it took a long time for me to get past that. Be the person who puts yourself out there. You're always self-critical of more self-critical than most. And I constantly get off phone calls and go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I do it like that? Oh, I should have said this. Now, rather than sitting and living with that, it's a case of, okay, well, I know that I've felt that. So I'm going to tell that person that and be like, okay, I've come up with these other ideas since we got off the call because my brain doesn't work as fast as you. But I've had to think about it. And this is what I think would work. So I think it's a combination of both, I would say.
Yeah. And it's gorgeous. I mean, we live in a world, especially, obviously we're both representing the financial services sector, where people almost feel the need to come in and look homogenized and look as if they belong and look and behave indeed like the person they report into, or the for what's worth, the average person who works. And people forget how it feels to be themselves. And it's through being oneself that basically we can make the stark contributions, the contributions that will have sustainability in them, but also will set us and our reputation for our personas, for our personalities, for our skill sets. And what a beautiful point. I completely resonate with. That item that you made very loud and clear on the university degrees. Really, you don't have to have the said university degree, unless what we're talking about is something hugely technical, from being a surgeon to a coder. Obviously, if you're not a coder, you cannot code, as simple as that. Yes, you can learn how to code, but you know what I mean? There's a readily available sort of position who needs a coder, and you need to be that coder. But other than that, what we talk about is attitudinal behavioral traits that will make you good at what you do. Because a certain set of behaviors and articulations of your personality, of your cognition, and this is where neurodiversity obviously comes in, that's going to allow you to perform highly in that role. And performing highly, and I would love your input. And by the way, clearly we agree in many things, but we don't have to agree across. And this is not the intent from either of us or in the theories. But it's we don't have to be right. Performing highly does not mean that we don't make mistakes, as beautifully as you said again. And the last thing that I want to make a mention of, and out of that you can unpick, you can ignore, you can move on into something else, as you wish. But leadership, to be a leader, or to be a manager who aspires to also be a leader, because obviously this is two completely separate notions in my book. You need to represent people. You need to make sure that people see you as a human being, not just as a wooden a piece of corporate manufacturing that is there to uphold, right? So yeah, I would love to hear how you see those things through the lens of your own personality and neurodiversity.
Yeah, I think having obviously been, everyone has a manager. You have managers your entire life. I've had good managers, I've had terrible managers, and the ones that have stayed with me and the ones that I've flourished under have taught me a lot from how to approach situations. And I think I find having that experience of having a good manager helps me become a good manager. What I see and I learn from them helps shape me to be a better person. And I'm a firm believer in you aren't just a team because you work together, right? You're a team because you trust and recognize and care for the people that you work with. And that, for me, is what builds a high-performing team. I want to know the people in my team. I want to know what's going on outside of work. I don't want to know, have you got this done? Are you on time? those are the things that, yes, we need to be aware of, but actually we need to be aware of the person and how they're feeling. And without that, you've got no engagement, you've got no understanding for that person. And I think as ADHD people, we are inherently nosy. We ask a lot of questions. But actually, that's how I like to be treated. I want people to say to me, how was your weekend? What did you get up to? How's things going at home? You know, if you know about their family situation, you know about their life, ultimately, people can't just come to work and switch off and be like, do you know what? Home, work. If you can, that's amazing. I've never been able to do that. And I don't know many people that can. And so therefore, whatever they're carrying in their personal life ultimately affects how they are at work. And the two can't go without each other, can they? It's being able to be a good leader is recognizing when somebody is struggling and identifying what you can do to help that person get to where they want to be, whether that's a problem statement that they're currently doing or whether it's a career goal. I want to know what their hopes and dreams are, and I want to help them achieve it, not just me. I don't believe in having a team that just plod along. I want teams to be engaged and excited and kind of something lighting a fire in their belly, giving them ownership of something that they can be proud of, because that's how I like to work. I love nothing more than to celebrate other people's success as well as my own. And in my team now, I think, you know, when we do something great, I want to shout about it. I want there to be a celebration, whether that's, you know, turning up with a big bag of donuts or going out for a drink after work. I'm a firm believer in celebrating success. And that's how I feel a good leader should be, is caring about their team.
Yeah. It's care, isn't it? It's care. You mentioned also the examples of what not to be. And what I hear loud and clearly, and I'm also like you, I've been blessed with some good managers in my life, but also some really poor managers in my life, and micromanagers. So micromanaging is really definitely not advisable. And I don't think it's whether we are neurodivergent and we can get a little bit too sensitive about certain things and we question. But I think it runs across everybody who lives life and has got many things on their plate. The last thing they want to actually feel like is that somebody is looking over the shoulders to see whether they've logged in or until what time or when did they physically leave the office, to try and ascertain whether that constitutes good performance or commitment. Because commitment is so much more than the time that you show up or the time that you leave the office. Is the quality of the work and what you said, the care. You spoke about fire in the belly, and to me it's like a big antithesis to what we shared, particularly around the time of COVID and suddenly after quiet quitting. You said, I don't want a team that actually just plods along. And you don't want a team because that team is not going to be productive. It's not going to be hitting targets if you plod along. And that's the quiet quitting. So, I mean, how big is the gap, do you think, between a team whose members has got fire in the belly, and I'm using, your words because really they're beautifully placed there, versus a team that is quietly quitting? Does it start from management? Can it be that you start losing people on the way because of life happening? And speaking practical terms, how would you see the what to do's?
Yeah, I think it is being observant as a manager, isn't it? It's not just having a check-in once a month. For me, isn't enough. Things can change so quickly in a day or a week. If you're having kind of check-ins with people once a month, you've missed a huge part of their life, and so much could have happened in that time. And you don't know, given the world we're in now post-COVID, everybody is more online rather than in person, so much more. Pre-COVID, I didn't even have a laptop. I went to the office every single day and I saw everybody every day. So I can read people pretty well. So I know if they're struggling, I know if something's going on. When you sat behind a screen, people that work in IT hate having their cameras on. It's a known fact. They're introverts and they don't want to have their face on. And therefore, you can't read a situation as well in that. And so you need to have more check-ins. You need to be more than once a month. And whether that's in a formal check-in or whether that's just a kind of a team meeting and not starting the meeting straight away about work, what'd you do get up to at the weekend? I don't care if we spend 15, 20 minutes talking about how people are doing and what they've been up to, because ultimately that makes people feel that they're cared about. It makes people feel that people are interested in what they've got to say. They're not just there just to say, have you done this? Tick, 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 tick. Why are you falling behind? I can't stand that style of management. It doesn't lend itself very well to people and it doesn't motivate people. It's just, you spend more time at work than you do anywhere else. You got to enjoy it. You got to love it. And if you're not, quite often it's because of the people around you that aren't caring for your life, I think.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. I love the point, and I will tell you exactly why I was asking that. Because more and more I find when I go to deliver a keynote speech or I'm in a panel discussion, there's always going to be, there's a guaranteed one question at least that says, okay, practically speaking, if I have, say, more than 20 people under me, how do I make sure that I look after them? Because it's physically impossible, obviously, and time-wise, impossible to really look after every single one of them, 30, 40, 50, and obviously can go to three-digit numbers of people. And this is where answers like yours really keep on giving me the necessary sort of conviction that what I keep on sort of, talking about resonates with more than just my cookie self. And that's that formal versus informal. Not everything has to be formalized. Not everything has to sit in an agenda or into a calendar entry. There's so much more we can actually deliver being informally caring and also informally carrying ourselves in that way. Because you see, sometimes we keep on saying, oh, check in with each other, check in. Sometimes life happening, perhaps we thought that we said hi to each other earlier, but perhaps our brain has forgotten the fact that imagery, it was from last week. Actually, I haven't seen you. Perhaps you're even on holiday. It doesn't quite matter. What ultimately my life has taught me, my corporate life has taught me matters is when people start seeing you for who you are. And I'm not saying let's go there and start sort of opening, your heart onto, I'm going through a tough time at home or whatever, this and that. But if you carry yourself with a degree of vulnerability, with, yes, relevant choices of sharing, people know that they have another human who's managing them. So that human will really naturally care about their well-being, right? So
it goes further than just your own team as well, though, doesn't it? It's not always just necessarily people that are only in my team. I think there's so many people across the business that sometimes just potentially haven't had a chat with somebody more than just a doing chat, not just a check-in chat. And I think, being a naturally chatty person as I am, I think my opener is always kind of, how are you, what you've been up to, before we even get to the work stuff. And, I think it's important for everybody to feel that they've got a platform or a person that they can discuss things with, not even just in their own team. It's being naturally inquisitive about the person, but also naturally inquisitive about what they're doing work-wise also. Makes their professional and their personal life actually feel cared about.
Another great point you're making, and makes me connect another point. Another frequent question that we get from people, and some of us know of the existence of our gain, which is a social sort of element to gain. Our gain really facilitates social gather-ups for people, no agendas, no dress codes, none of that, in a quiet place where people just simply connect and they bring the whole selves to it to discuss things that really matter to them. One of the questions there in that circle, that community of our gain that often pops up is, how do I connect with other colleagues across and beyond my own department to show to them the things that I deeply care about, and potentially in this way to be known, to become known, and explore new opportunities or other opportunities that might be available in that workplace. And I think if we all, and those of us particularly as managers, as leaders, who have got the opportunity to connect with people by simply saying, hey, how are you? I've seen you before. You were there at this sort of campaign or at this forum or whatever it might be. Tell me again, what do you do? In this way, you give way to somebody to ask a question, to really connect. Yeah? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I was just saying it is exactly that, isn't it? And if those opportunities aren't there, make them. Like, be the master of your own destiny. If you see something that isn't happening and you feel it could work for you and other people in the business, be that person to put yourself up there and go, do you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to make that happen.
I mean, it's easy for us to say because look at us. We're women in our 40s. We have gone through that formal diagnosis. We both have family members who we can clearly see being cognitively different, for that beauty of, difference. And again, difference ought to be celebrated and ought to be accepted as on a get-go kind of position parameter. We don't make difference. We exist differently. We're born different. And I often hear people who say, well, I'm not there in that journey. I'm not there. So what Jemma and Vina are saying now are two women who've gone through that career, who've learned from their mistakes, who've actually now come to look at themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, I love what I see. You're by no means a perfect specimen, but there's no such requirement for perfection. You're great to be imperfect. And this is what, you continue being. And accepting imposter syndrome and anything else that might hit us. There's other people who speak about panic attacks. There's other people who speak about, the need to feel validated or to check in. But ultimately, whether and wherever you might be on that sort of journey, do as much as you can really feel sort of open to do. So don't go connecting if you are feeling that's putting yourself under too much strain. But perhaps if I was to take a leaf out of your book, when you said, as a leader, as a manager, be observant. How about the other way? And you as an employee, with no managerial duties, and you don't need them really to be happier or to feel more successful, right? You are successful by being there, by contributing, and by being committed and loyal. You're already successful. Be observant and look for these managers, for these leaders who you can see have got an open attitude. You can see whether they're going around cracking a smile or stopping to say hi to people. They're not always checking the watch, kind of going, I'm busy, I'm so sorry, send me an email.
An eye on out the door, haven't they? It's kind of
exactly
be present
or the
in the
family start door,
conversation.
right?
And I think sometimes, we are guilty of that as well. My son does it all the time. He's looking, he says he's listening, but he's not. He's looking somewhere completely different. And I know that's because he's just waiting for me to stop talking so he can just go and do whatever it is that he actually wants to do. And it is a trait, isn't it? It's a known trait that when you're trying so hard to like dial into a conversation and listen, but your brain is like working 100 miles an hour, thinking of all the things that you need to do and I need to be here and I shouldn't have done that, I didn't do this. It can then, I really hate that because then I feel like I'm not giving someone my 100% attention. And I think now I can't get it right all the time. I'm never going to. I can't profess to say I've got all of this now down. There's so many things that you've just said that I resonate with the overwhelm, with the guilt, with the anxiety. Those things are all still there 100% of the time. And I'm constantly having to remind myself and give myself tools to give myself a break. I think sometimes we are such our own worst enemy. And I still have it when I'll have a complete meltdown because I feel the whole world's against me and I'm not doing anything right. And, I get days like that. But it's how you pick yourself back up again from that. And sometimes you do just need to wallow a little bit and go, do you know what? It is a bit too much and I'm struggling. But it's having having someone that you can actually sound off to, or a way to just offload that. Even if it isn't a person, it's just something that you do to offload it. Is so key. It really is. I think our brains are so chaotic. And I never knew that people had quiet brains. I thought everybody had a noisy brain all of the time. And I thought that was normal. And learning that people can have quiet brains, I'm a bit like, but how? How do you have a quiet brain? Like my brain's always shouting all of the time. I think I saw a documentary on the BBC, like Tom Bowler, I think he was, and they were having all these balls thrown at him. And I just was like, I get that. That's me. Like, I just feel constantly under attack. And it's like my tennis racket isn't big enough to bat away all the balls all of the time. A colleague shared something on a call earlier this month, and I can't say I've ever resonated with something or ever found something so helpful as what she explained to me. I think one of the tools I've learned before she told me this is I've struggled with overwhelm and taken too much on my entire life, and I will literally work myself into the ground trying to get everything done, fix everything because I don't want to let anyone down, and that whole imposter syndrome thing. And I've learned from going through quite serious burnout that I have a circle of control. Okay. And there's things outside of my control that I can't affect. Like, I'm supposed to be getting married in 5 weeks, and at the moment we don't even know if we can get there because of what's going on in the war and everything like that. There's bigger things at stake than us getting married. That probably should really freak me out, but I can't affect that. I can't do anything about it. I've got a load of other fires that are going on elsewhere in my life at the moment that actually I can affect and I can control. So I focus my attempts on those. And since going through that huge burnout, it's really taught me to prioritize what I think I can do, not necessarily trying to put it in a linear order and say, right, this is priority 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't work for me, because I'll jump from 1 to 5 and 3 and 2, and you're just going to go around in circles, half starting all of those things, and then go, I didn't really achieve anything apart from making myself more confused. So now it's focusing on what things can I do? What things can I affect? And my colleague took that even further. And I think, I don't remember how it came about. I think we were on like an introduction call, and it was tell me your name and what you do, and then give me your best tip in life. And I kind of gave my circle of control thing. And she then came on and said, oh, I learned this from somebody else about the ball theory. And she said, you've got balls everywhere, a bit like Tombola Man, and you've got balls that are glass and you've got balls that are rubber. And you have to decide, out of all the things that are going on in your world right now that are making you feel overwhelmed, the glass balls are the things that you drop, they break, they can't come back. The rubber balls are the things that bounce and can recover. And I'd never looked at life like that before. And I kind of looked at it and said, okay, what are my glass balls? My glass balls are my almost husband, my children, my sanity, my self-respect, all of those kind of things. My rubber balls are things that I can get back. So those are things like work commitments. Those are overstretching myself with social commitments because I want to please everybody. Those people will still be there. They're my friends. They're not going to drop me just because I didn't come out one evening. You know, if I miss my kids' school play, that's a glass thing. I'm never going to be able to see that again. And that's made me reevaluate how I prioritize things now. I think I spent so much of my life trying to hold every single ball and not disappoint anyone, that it puts so much pressure on you, and then you just constantly feel like you're failing, constantly. And that's a really difficult place to be, because you just beat yourself up all the time. But this is just, and I said this to her the other day, I said, you have no idea how much that one little tip you've given me has affected how I am now approaching things. And I think that was a great bit of advice that I will take with me, I think, for the rest of my days.
And oh my God, thank you so much for sharing, because it is actually a moment of epiphany here. It's an eye opener. It's an eye and soul opener. And as a matter of fact, pun not intended here. And I don't know, no means that we are just trying to sort of, try to define this, my place in this world. But would we not agree that my place in this world is identifying and preserving our glass balls? How about that one? Yeah. It's just this. Yeah. It's just that. It's identifying. And funnily enough, you spoke about the BBC documentary, which is exactly what I wanted to say as well. And I was there last night reading on and sort of saying how a neurodivergent brain is always very busy and loves sort of, being out there in busy streets, because we don't do meditation. We cannot sort of, be in absolute silence. It drives us nuts, right? Whereas gives us lots of noise. I'm speaking ADHD, because obviously autistic people will tell you differently. And again, other ADHD people might also tell us differently. Each neurodivergent person who has got their own sort of needs, challenges, observations. We just happen to be those two people who really thrive in noisy, dynamic, everything sort of fluid and changing environments. And we could not really lock ourselves in a room and say, now I'm going to work for 8 hours. That would be the death of me.
I get so distracted by so many things. I mean, I've now got an app on my phone, which I've only downloaded in the last 2 weeks because I got clickbaited on Instagram. And I was like, oh, that sounds lovely. And there I go. Let's get immersing myself in that. It's like getting a new planner. You start with the best of intentions. But actually, this app is actually doing quite, I can't remember what it's called, but I know there's millions of versions of it out there. But it's kind of almost stopping me from using my phone. And it's me being able to write down. I have to-do lists that are so chaotic. And the to-do list just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I never remember what's actually on it. And I'm a bit like, this to-do list has been going for like 4 weeks and I've not even really cleared off what I've already done. So then it just feels overwhelming. Whereas this app, I can kind of put them in, and I can put them in for specific days. And when they're done, they disappear and I never see them again. And it doesn't let me use my phone if I haven't done these things. And if it's even down to drinking water, taking a break, taking medication and everything like that. And it integrates my calendar as well. So it tells me, don't miss a meeting because it gives you an alarm and everything like that. And I think it's taken all the elements of my life where I'm trying to have lists for things. I'm trying to have reminders and put them in one place and stopping me from doom scrolling when I'm meant to be doing something else. It has been so far quite good. But with everything we try, it has a novelty period, right? I know that with my son. You try something to start off with, you stick with it for a while, and then it might disappear. The moment it's working, let's see if it carries on. But I think for me, it's kind of keeping me accountable for the things that I need to do, but also giving me a place where I can write these things down. I always used to keep a notebook by my bed. I don't know if you're the same, Vina, but when you get into bed at the end of a day where you've been absolutely manic and you lay down and your brain's supposed to be switching off and going to sleep, it's only because it's gone quiet in the house and the telly's off and you finally lay down and then your brain goes, right now, Jemma, I'm going to wake you up with all the things you didn't have time to think about today. And then I'll be laying there going, well, how did I even get to that thought? And then I'll try and start tracing it back. So I started putting a notebook next to my bed so I could write all these things down, because then I'd be annoyed in the morning because I couldn't remember what I remembered that was really important in bed the night before. So I now integrate that into that app as well. And I can set it for a day or a time when I want to be reminded about that, and it pings up and you're not allowed to do anything else. I can't even send a text message until I've dealt with that, or I change a date of when I want to move it. It's been frustrating at times. So I just need to make a phone call. Just let me have my phone. But actually, it means that if I haven't done it, I've got to assign it to a different date and time rather than just going, oh, yeah, I'll do that later, and then totally forgetting about it.
It is absolutely fabulous. Sorry, I didn't want to sort of interrupt you. It was something else you wanted to say. Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, was it okay? I mean, it's fabulous. This is me. 1:30 this morning. I'm like, bing, and I always maintain whatever I do, whether I speak, whether I listen, I always take notes. So I've been taking notes of what you're saying. I have masses and massive lists. As a matter of fact, I've got some tidying up which I had to transfer from my workroom and desk. Really, it's the dining room. I've got my own desk and I work from, and it was piling up with to-do lists and clutter of articles with some exceptional ideas and things that connect. And I had to really cherry pick all of them, leave them on the dining sort of table, just to have a little bit of a clear space. One thing I cannot live without is my own sort of notebook. Is incredible. Everything that you say resonates so much, and it's really beautifully articulated sort of practical ideas of how people can basically self-help, because really much of people can say, I hear you, I understand you. And now as we're growing really the ties of the community between neurodivergent individuals or individuals who are basically happy to celebrate and accept their own difference. You don't want to sort of speak of your superpowers. You don't see things as superpowers. You don't consider yourself spicy or this or the other. You don't have to. And even if that sort of notion of neurodivergence hasn't found its way of connection with you, it doesn't have to be. Just accept the fact that we're all different. And as life happens in this kind of chaotic world, we need to really identify one thing that I thought I wanted to sort of contribute here in these great items that you mentioned, with the overwhelm and the focusing on the things that you can control, and of course the fabulous ball theory and the tools that you can actually, help yourselves through, is no matter how bad we're feeling in certain sort of, times in our life, which is all understood and it's all very human to care, it's always continue going back to your one anchor, that one sort of base, key core idea, your purpose, the thing that actually, keeps you want more of this life. Perhaps it's just itself, honoring life, honoring the fact that we have been granted that one lifeline, and we want to honor it, and we want to leave it to the max, and we want to sort of, see what's there around that corner, and what happens as a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old and a 70-year-old, and keep on sort of learning on the way. So important. I want to give you the final sort of, word, because I'm also keen for us to explore children, to explore sort of motherhood, parenthood. But on closing the chapter, my place in this world as a professional, as a woman, as a, if you will, even lay diagnosed neurodivergent individual, as a me being me and doing me, is there something, be it practical or being an overarching kind of value or tip that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think it probably is a nice segue into what we're about to talk to with about my son. Um, I'm only diagnosed as a result of him. He didn't tell me to. That's not what I mean by that. I mean, and I think this is so common now for parents to be diagnosed as a result of going through a diagnosis with their child. Um, and I think for me, I'll be really open and admit this. And I think you have to hit rock bottom sometimes to actually reevaluate what you need in life. And I was there, and I was focusing everything, and everything from me was going into being an advocate for my son and everything he has to deal with in daily life and our relationship as a family. And we were at breaking point as a family. We were having intervention help from him and for him, but that also was intervention help for me, in terms of how I can approach situations differently, almost sort of like parenting advice, sort of life coaching and stuff like that, which was with a view to kind of help our family, not just me, not just him, and have a more harmonious household. And I think at the time my partner had asked if I would go for some therapy as well, which I was like, I don't have time for that. I don't even have time to do all the things that I'm currently doing for him and being a working mum and trying to keep afloat and keep you all fed and the house clean and all the rest of it. When am I going to fit that in? And he was like, you have to at some point put yourself first, because I was putting myself off for so long because I thought he was the main focus. But in actually putting myself last was effectively affecting him negatively as well. And it was affecting the rest of the family, because I didn't see how overwhelmed and I was as a mum, and as a almost wife. And that affected everybody. My stress levels, without me realizing, would me be snapping at people and making situations with my son escalate a lot quicker, because without realizing it, because we both had ADHD, that's just like a fireball cracker. Having two people in the house with the same kind of mindset can be like that. And I think both his consultant, my therapist, and the life coach type person that we had for the family all tiptoed round this little fact of, Jemma, have you ever considered, your neurodiversity and potentially exploring a diet? I said, oh, you don't need to sugarcoat it. Like, I know I'm ADHD. That's fine. Having gone through this with Oscar, I'm fairly certain I live in the same campus but I'm not the priority, he is. And they're like, but do you realize by not making yourself a priority, you could actually be making things worse? And I was like, I've never really thought about it like that. And his consultant kind of sent him out the room and was like, I want to have a frank chat with you. I feel like if you get you looked after, as well as you focusing on getting him looked after, your relationship could be a whole lot different. And it was only until someone told me I needed to put myself first for the sake of him that it made me realize that actually that is the right way to do it. Because I think as mums, we generally just put everybody else first over ourselves. But I didn't realize just how much that was affecting my family. So I guess my bit of advice would be, don't leave yourself till last, because you don't know how that's affecting everybody else around you. And you're sitting there suffering in silence, thinking you are taking on the world, but quietly inside, you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is getting really tough. You put yourself first for a little bit, it makes everybody else realize that actually you matter too.
Yeah. And what a wonderful and self-deprecating sort of way to close this first discussion. Put yourself first. That's that infamous example of the oxygen mask, right? And we hear it on the planes in case of an accident or an air pressure sort of loss. Please apply the oxygen mask first on yourself if you really genuinely want to help others, because obviously we're all heroic and I know we are self-sacrificial, but if that oxygen is needed and we need to sort of show that we have that resilience that will take us the extra mile, we need to have sufficient oxygen. Again, replace oxygen with whatever else might be: sanity, sleeping time, physical and spiritual well-being. Again, the thing that I have always, tormenting me is, some of us might have the chance to go for long walks or go to the gym, but how often do we look after our spirit and our souls? And they're supposed to be the ones that are not suffering wear and tear over time, the soul and the spirit. So putting yourself first. Thank you very much, Jemma. That was That was remarkably useful and really, really very valuable. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.